I want to teach you the difference between orthopedic manual muscle testing, which is what you might get from a doctor, physio, maybe chiropractors, osteopaths, potentially even personal trainers who've been trained in certain ways and techniques. Okay, that's fine and dandy. Then there's you can use orthopedic manual muscle testing in a different way, more along the lines of applied kinesiology, which tells us different things about those muscles. Okay, it's still looking for the same kind of stuff, but it's looking for a deeper level of answer. And then there's what I use, which is gross manual muscle testing, which is in a similar thought process to applied kinesiology. I'll explain all this as I go along. Similar thought process to applied kinesiology is looking for something else other than is the muscle strong or weak. And then I'm going to maybe show you a couple of ways of self manual muscle testing, and there are hundreds, dozens, if not hundreds. Okay, there's certainly a few. Okay, and I'll teach you a couple that I know. Okay, that I use on a regular basis when I'm treating people, and how I started and kind of where I am now. So let's start off with orthopedic manual muscle testing. Orthopedic manual muscle testing is a way of testing muscles across the entire body. Okay, it could be in the neck, could be in the arms, could be in the torso, could be in the hips, legs, feet, toes even. Okay, you can muscle test every muscle in the body. Now, what the therapist will do, whoever that might be, will put the muscle or put your body in a position where that muscle should be in a stronger position. So if it's the bicep, okay, your arm will be down your side, with shoulder will be down, kind of externally rotated out there. Okay, and my arm will be bent. So I'll just show you up here. Okay, so the arm will be bent kind of roughly halfway through that muscle's range of motion. Okay, so my arm's full range is straight and completely contracted. It's going to go somewhere in the middle. Okay, roughly. The therapist will then ask you to contract the muscle and they will resist. Okay, you as the person being tested will initiate the test. Okay, so you will start contracting and they will resist to meet your force. Okay, and it will be an isometric movement and it will last maybe a second or two at most. So it's there, resist, and if it's strong, that's what it will look like, and if it's weak, it will look like this. Okay, so you'll start the contraction and eventually the muscle will break. Okay, and the therapist will kind of essentially win the test. It makes a lot of assumptions. Okay, it's making a lot of assumptions, which I'll cover in a bit. Okay, then there's that might do that for your whole body. So let's say you show up for a shoulder injury, frozen shoulder, I don't know, painful shoulder, maybe even neck. Okay, so we're talking this region of the body. Okay, shoulder and neck. Okay, and it hurts to turn your head, it hurts to lift your arm. Maybe there's something funny going on in your fingers, like a bit of tingling. Okay, and then maybe it feels a bit weak down here. Okay, so they might test, if I'm doing this side, okay, they might test your neck, okay, by putting you in this position and then trying to push your head and shoulder away from each other, testing basically the upper traps and the scalenes. Okay, depending on what kind of position they get you in. I might do a variety of shoulder range of movement and break tests, orthopedic manual muscle tests, okay, just to see which ones fail. Okay. Now, what is a failure when it comes to manual muscle testing? Is basically there is not enough, and there's a mismatch between what my brain expects and what my body does. So I get in there and it just doesn't have the strength that it should have, because the communication between my brain and that muscle, okay, which we've isolated through getting you in a specific body position, isn't as high as it should be. And it's on a scale of 0 to 5. 0 means there's completely nothing. Okay, you couldn't even move your own arm into that correct position to get the test done. Okay, just it hurts too much. There's not enough strength there. Okay, you can't get into that position. That would be a 0. Okay, and a 5 would be, strong. Okay, completely strong. There is no kind of wobble in that muscle when the tester, the therapist, tries to move your arm or whatever, tries to move that joint. Now, kinesiology will still use orthopedic manual muscle testing, but when they come across a weak muscle, what they don't assume is that is the muscle that is weak. Okay, they're looking for another reason, which is great. Okay, it's a great thing to be able to do. Okay, so most therapists, they look for an orthopedic manual muscle test to go, okay, yep, teres major, rotator cuff muscle, that failed. Okay, we need to strengthen that guy. Here's a load of exercises to strengthen that muscle. Okay, and you'll get a load of rotator cuff warm-up exercises. Fine, okay, might help. But a kinesiologist, okay, or another muscle tester who works in a different way, might look at that muscle and then refer back to either they remember or they've got a chart of, okay, well, this muscle failed, but why else? Why else could that be? And they'll have a list of other things to check. Now, in applied kinesiology, generally, and not always, but generally, they're looking for some sort of nutrient deficiency. It might be a vitamin or a mineral. Normally, okay, they might be looking for fat as well. Okay, they might be looking for other certain points around the body that might be linked in with that specific area. Think along the lines of Chinese meridians. There's Chapman reflexes, which again, it's kind of along a similar thought process to meridians. So certain points on the body to press will associate with different body parts. Okay, so a couple of places on the tummy might link to the glutes. Okay, so if you have muscle test failures around the hips, an applied kinesiologist might assess certain vitamins and minerals. Okay, I don't know which ones, okay, because that's not my expertise. I'd do it in a different way. They might assess those and then assess maybe some Chapman reflexes and then retest the muscles while or after they've treated a Chapman's reflex or some other kind of point that they're going for within their realms of experience and what they've learned. So kinesiology takes muscle testing a step further, but they're still using, I say but, okay, I've got nothing against it. They're still using orthopedic manual muscle testing. In what I've learned, we use something called a gross manual muscle test. Okay, so gross means instead of testing individual muscles all over the body for various little things, okay, fine. It's the kinesiology way. Cool, I'm cool with that. We use a gross manual muscle test, one that kind of we just use a muscle that is easy to access, doesn't require getting a client in funny positions. You've got to remember everything about, okay, the leg has to be in this certain position. I must be careful not to do this and this and this, that and the other. We just use it's very general, okay? But that muscle is there to represent the rest of the body. And the way we do this, so we're just looking for, is it this or this? Okay, we're just asking for a yes or no. Okay, and that's what muscle testing is in kinesiology. We're looking for a yes or a no, or a more yes or more no. Okay, we're looking for truth. Whereas orthopedic manual muscle testing is looking for, okay, is this muscle connected to the brain? Okay, I can show you how that is easy to change. Okay. A quick lesson from history here in environmental changes. Okay, so where you are and what you're doing has an effect on how your body will respond. So a muscle test in one body position, you can, like standing, for example, will be different to a muscle test if you can get the muscle in the right position. It will be different to a muscle test if you're sitting. Okay, so it's quite a famous example, okay, because Pavlov's dog, okay, you may or may not have heard of it, but it's a relatively famous scientific experiment performed on dogs to train them. I don't know if he set out intentionally to do this in the first place, but he trained them to salivate at the sound of a bell. So he got this bunch of dogs in, gave them food, rang a bell at the same time. Over a period of time, they learnt to associate the sound of the bell with food, and whenever they heard the bell, they would begin to salivate because they were expecting food. That was their body's way of preparing to eat something. Now, he was incredibly successful at doing that. Okay? And these dogs would salivate essentially on command. They'd hear the bell, salivation occurred. The problem with that experiment was that if he went and did that somewhere else, say a different laboratory, somewhere else in the world, with these dogs who were trained to salivate to the sound of a bell, they didn't do it. They didn't salivate to the sound of a bell somewhere else. If we look this with, stick some muscle testing head on there and go, well, in a certain condition, right, in this laboratory over here, okay, muscle testing, this fails, this fails, this fails, this fails, this fails. However, if I stick you in a different environment, maybe you get a completely different set of results. Okay, this is the problem with orthopedic manual muscle testing, is because it doesn't look past that. Okay. They'll tend to stick you in one position, okay, because it's easier, okay, sitting, lying down, standing up, to assess as much as they can in that position, but they won't necessarily do the same muscle tests in a lying position if you've been doing them standing up. Okay. Same with the applied kinesiology. They'll have a test bench and they'll get you doing the same tests they do with everyone. They don't necessarily change body position. Some might not. I couldn't say exactly because I'm not them. Okay, I'm going to explain more what I do. Okay, I use, because I've had to move from in person to online, I've had to do a few things to make sure that muscle testing works for me and how my mind works. So I've had to drastically change. So when I first learned muscle testing, I learned gross manual muscle testing. I also learned orthopedic manual muscle testing in the process, okay, because it is a reasonable assessment tool to say, okay, look, this is how your body was at the start of our session. I did this, 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 and this using gross manual muscle testing and pressing these places. And now we go back to the orthopedic manual muscle test that we did at the start and look at the difference. Okay, you were a 0 or a 2 or a 3 in these muscle tests, and now you're a 5. Okay, we still need to fix X, Y, and Z. Okay, but A, B, C, D, E, and F are strong. So it was a useful tool to show progression during a session. But obviously online, I cannot do orthopedic manual muscle tests with people. I just have to use their self-assessment of movement. Okay, so does my shoulder feel better? Does my pain feel better? Does my body feel different? That gas and that IBS and that problem that I was having, has that gone? Okay, and some of these things might take a couple of days to show up. For example, with IBS, that's not going to be like, okay, because I'm not going to be treating someone while they're sat on the toilet crying into their hands because it's the 20th time they've been for a poo that day. Hey, I do it. I self-test, okay, so it's called, in applied kinesiology, it's called surrogating. Okay, so I take on the kind of the attributes of that person at that point in time. So instead of doing an orthopedic manual muscle test on them, I'm essentially imagining it and I'm self-testing myself. So I use myself as the carrier. I'm the kind of, if it was pregnancies and there was a couple that couldn't get pregnant together for whatever reason, the egg would be implanted into another person who could carry the baby. Okay, I'm that person. Okay, I do it. Instead of there being a third person, I just assume the role of the third person. That's how I do it now. I have to do it that way. Otherwise, I wouldn't have a job. Okay, I'd have to be an engineer again, which is not as fun as this. Body position matters. Okay, where you are matters when it comes to muscle testing. So let's say we're back on the bicep, okay, and you're standing up, you're looking forwards, okay, this is important, you're looking forwards, you're kind of just staring into space. The therapist asks you to contract the muscle, you contract the muscle, okay. Cool, okay, it works. But for some reason, later on, they retest you, okay, and they test muscles that have passed again. Okay, they retest a whole kind of array of tests, but for some reason you're looking to the left and you're thinking about things, you know, things you don't like. And you're thinking about, I don't know, Tony Blair, or you're thinking about David Cameron, or you're thinking about some sort of politician that you don't like, okay, or some sort of environment that you don't like. Okay, maybe the music changed. If you're in a therapy clinic, okay, maybe the music changes. Okay, maybe somebody walks into the room that you don't like. Okay, and you're looking across there and your thoughts have changed. And that muscle test, which tested strong at the beginning, fails. Okay, it goes from a 5 to a 3. Okay, because the stimuli from your environment has changed. Okay, your environment includes internally, your thoughts, and includes externally. Okay, so whether it's sunny, whether it's cloudy, whether it's raining, whether it's windy, which direction the wind is coming from. This all matters when it comes to muscle testing. So that's why, or when it gets cold, I get back pain, okay, or my joints stiffen up. Okay, it's not because it's cold, it's your body's response to the conditions, the environment that it finds itself in. The muscles will weaken, okay, because of the way you think. Yeah, the environment plays a part, okay, the external thing plays a part, because if it was warm and sunny, then you wouldn't have that thought, which means the joints wouldn't seize up. So that same clinician takes you to a different place with different people, your muscle tests will change. Okay, your orthopedic manual muscle tests will change. There's got to be a barrier somewhere, right? Okay, there's got to be a way of testing it. We've got to have some way to do it. You know, we try and make it as kind of this is what happens every time. Okay, to make sure that it's accurate, but it never is. Okay, particularly with orthopedic manual muscle testing. The thing that I do, okay, some kinesiologists might, that some therapists might also do, not all of them, some won't, is I will always consider that body position is different. What people think is different. Okay, and that is basically means that's why I don't do that orthopedic style manual muscle testing anymore, because there is way too much that influences the result. Could be anything that influences the result. So I have to be very specific with how I think my thoughts, okay, and how I muscle test. And it's why muscle testing on me and self muscle testing is more accurate than muscle testing on you, because I know what I'm doing. Okay, I know what I'm looking out for. Okay, and that's why self manual muscle testing is always going to be the best way to treat yourself. Okay, if you've got the questioning correct, okay, and the thought pattern kind of a bit more in tune with how we need to ask questions and how we need to do this. So in an earlier video, I was describing how our body is just basically a whole bundle of voltage, frequencies, magnetism, and how that all works together to create me and how my body works, whether it's in pain or whether it's healthy, whether it moves well, whether it's strong, whether it's weak. Okay, it's all related to voltage. I'm going to even add in sickness and disease in there as well. Low voltage equals pain, discomfort, weak muscles, and potentially, if it's really low, illness, tiredness, sickness, disease. Eventually, death. And kind of, when I say death, I mean accelerated death. You're dying earlier than perhaps, you know, your average lifespan should dictate. Okay, so 80, 90 years old. Okay, so early death from heart attack, some sort of disease, cancer, whatever it might be. That is when your body voltage has dropped to such a level, certainly in a particular area, that disease has become viable. Okay, it's the environment. Okay, we come back to Pavlov's dog. Stick those dogs in a different environment, they behave differently. If my cells, their environment, and I'm going to point at my thyroid gland here, okay, if the voltage at my thyroid gland is too low, That is my local environment for my thyroid gland. That provides a good environment for disease to get in, okay, to take hold, to do its thing. And that environment is controlled by voltage. A good level of voltage in all of my cells or in particular areas of my body, then health. Low voltage, not so good health. And that can show up locally. And when I say locally, I mean in small areas of our body. So like the thyroid, like maybe our heart or skin. Okay, just looking at my arm. Okay, skin, there's some skin down there. Okay, for example, like moles, psoriasis, rashes, itchiness, dry skin. Okay, you might only get dry skin in a certain area of your body. Okay, that just tells us that the voltage to that patch of skin is not high enough. Okay. Athlete's foot, the voltage to the areas between my toes and probably the whole end of my foot is not high enough, and it has provided an environment that has enabled bacteria to invade and okay, bacteria to breed and survive. But if the voltage there from internally and my skin was good enough, those bacteria would not have survived. Okay, my body would have fought them off. Let's take you back a few years in how I was learning a few years ago how this all worked. So in applied movement neurology, we used touches and physical body positions. It might be of the eyes, of the jaw, and touch points along the body to stimulate the nervous system in a particular area. And then we'd use our gross manual muscle test, and it was a shoulder flexion test. I'll see if I can do that in a minute, to basically ask the question, is there a problem with voltage associated with what I've just touched? Okay, so we'd start off with the jaw, move on to the upper spine, move down the spine, and associate that with a shoulder injury or an elbow injury. So say they had a shoulder injury, start at the shoulder, touch it, gross manual muscle test, problem. Okay, the muscle test went weak. Okay, because the brain has gone, there's a problem with the voltage here. I'll recognize it because I've just been stimulated there. There's a problem, weak. And that's only momentary. Okay, it's maybe a second or two. It doesn't last long. Okay, so this test will pass, assuming all conditions are good. Passed. Touch a problem area. Test. Same test fails. Okay, so we need to have, is that muscle good to begin with? Is the muscle good? Yep, cool. Touch a problem area. Fail. Okay, what else is associated with it? Is it the jaw? So touch both sides of the jaw. Test. Yes or no? And then we'd move on through a whole bunch of other tests. Okay, what is associated with the jaw and this shoulder? This shoulder. What's associated? So shoulder, jaw. What else? Okay, is it an organ? Is it a whatever? Okay, and we've got this whole system to check. Test. And then we went around and tried to correct it. Okay, through generating new and different voltages and changing the stimulus to the body through pressing certain areas, through, it could have been massage, could have been kind of trigger point type work. There's all sorts of reflexes and reactions that our body will use. Okay, and then at the end of the session, we come back to the shoulder, maybe not at the end of the session, or next section of the session, come back to the shoulder, give it the same stimulation we gave it at the beginning. Test. Strong. Cool. How does your arm move? Ah, cool. I can move it all the way around, and before it was here and it hurt. Okay, and that's how we do it. Okay, that's how I learned muscle testing. As I mentioned earlier on, I don't do that in person anymore. I don't muscle test in person anymore. I surrogate myself. Okay, and there are ways and means of doing that. And there are multiple ways and means of doing that, and they usually involve your hand, okay, or a range of movement. Okay. So some of the other practitioners of what I do this in different ways to how I do it, and that's fine. Other muscle testers in different trainings might have a different way. So I'll give you a couple. Okay, there's a really simple way. Okay, it's going to take ages, but there's a really simple way. I'll show you that now. Cool. Glad you got that. And I'll show you a way with my hand. Okay, so I'm going to just tuck my thumb in. So this essentially is a muscle test as well. So if I spread my fingers, and so now I'm contracting all of these muscles to move my fingers apart. Now I can touch my shoulder and go, right, okay, muscle test, strong. So my shoulder's the problem area. Okay, muscle test. Oh, my little finger came in that time. Okay, so it was a different area of my shoulder. So if I go back here, okay, this is really hard to do with one hand. Go back here. No, it's not at the back. Is it there? It's more in the deltoid. So problem here. Okay. So I then go, no, it's more, I can get really specific. So it's right in that joint there. Yeah, okay, so the little finger came in. Okay, I'm also looking for maybe the index finger to come in as well. So little finger came in there, that problem. And then I can run through what I know to associate with it. Or you might run through some things that you might know. Okay, you might run through, okay, nutrients. Okay, you might go minerals. Okay, is it a mineral problem? Not a mineral problem. Is it a vitamin problem? Okay, vitamin A. Oh, vitamin A. So deficient? Yeah, deficient vitamin A. Other vitamin? No, just vitamin A. I might run through macros. Protein? No. Fat? No. Carbohydrate? Okay, cool. Little finger moved again. Carbohydrates low. Carbohydrates high. Okay, I just ate breakfast, which was wheat-based. So right now, my shoulder is, it doesn't hurt, there's nothing wrong with it, but my shoulder is showing up a minor defect because of what I ate for breakfast, which was about an hour ago. And I ate fruit and fiber with some oats and milk. Okay, I might even ask, okay, lactose. Yeah, okay, dairy. Okay, I might ask even, what is the highest priority? Okay, what's the highest of those things I ate? What's the highest order of things that's the problem? Wheat. Nope. Dairy. Yep. Dairy. Dairy caused the problem. So dairy is causing a very minor issue in my right shoulder right now. Okay. Very specifically here. And that's how precise it can get. Okay. You could probably even get down to like a pen tip or a needle and go, right, the problem is there. And if you've got a system like I do of assessing all of those things, okay, that I've learned through 5 or 6 years worth of practice, reading dozens of books, hundreds probably of books, and studying with the AMN Academy, plus a bunch of other things, you can learn all that too. Okay, so this is maybe one way you can muscle test. Okay, so strong, is it strong? Yep. Okay, let me show you something else. Okay, thought matters. Okay, I'm going to say in my head, okay, just in my head, I'm weak. Okay, weak. Just going to think that thought, weak. I'm going to change my thought to strong. There's a big difference. Okay, I was forcing them much harder. Okay, this isn't actually the way I muscle test. Okay, so let me show you another couple of ways to muscle test. That's one way. There's the ring method, okay, or double ring method. So make that kind of shape with both hands. You stick them together, okay, and you try and pull them apart. Okay, a strong muscle test, they will stay together. Okay, or you could use a hook method. So one is a ring, okay, one is a hook. Okay, so go pull. Okay, I was doing that so often and so many times in a session. So if I was in clinic for 4 or 5 hours, I might have done that 500 or 600 times. I started getting shoulder injuries from doing that. So I stopped doing it that way. But muscle testing is directly linked with voltage, okay, frequency and magnetism. Directly linked with voltage, frequency and magnetism. Low voltage in an area, a muscle test will fail. You can increase that voltage in an area by pressing a certain area of the body that might be linked. Okay, it might be seemingly unlinked. Okay, because if it's a shoulder, I might work on a knee or an ankle or a hip, and that muscle test will change. Okay. In orthopedic manual muscle testing, they'll just accept that as truth. Okay, that muscle doesn't work. Okay, that muscle currently is failing. We need to do some exercise to sort that out. It might be a bunch of muscles that exercise and only one of them needs work. Okay, because it's essentially it's taking voltage from the other muscles. It's dysfunctional. Okay, and that one muscle then affects the other muscles, and by sorting one of them out, you might sort 5 of them out. It might be what you've thought about that's caused the muscle test to fail. It might be where your head is positioned. It might be the way you're sat. It might be the music you're listening to, which is causing the muscle test to fail. It is not, orthopedic manual muscle testing is not great, because there's all these other factors to consider when it comes to manual muscle testing. And it's massively down to what this guy does, your brain, okay? Not my skin up on my temple. It's a lot down to what goes on in my head. What are my thoughts? What are my beliefs at that point? What's my environment like? What are the smells in this room? Because it might be the smell that puts off a certain muscle. Okay, there might be a certain odor that means your deltoids fail, which then means basically every muscle test you've been given in that session is invalid. It's non-repeatable. It's got to be repeatable. And if the music changes, if how I speak to a client is not right for them, it's going to affect the muscle test. I might even make it stronger just by talking to them in a certain way that they haven't been spoken to in a while, and they might appreciate that. It might also be that I speak to them in a way that they don't appreciate, and muscle tests will fail left, right, and center. Some might remain strong, or some will remain strong, and others will fail, which wouldn't have necessarily failed if another person had muscle tested them. So it depends on how we speak, depends on what we think, depends on what we've eaten, depends on the smells in the room, depends on where we're looking, depends on my head position, depends on my body position. Am I comfortable? Am I uncomfortable? There's so much at play, because my body is reading all of these signals from the environment, from my internal environment, all at the same time. And it's given us a snapshot. Okay? But if we're not considering that these other things are at play, then an orthopedic manual muscle test is pointless. Almost entirely pointless, because all they're testing is, yep, we know you've got a problem shoulder. It hurts. That's why you're here. We're going to put you through another load of pain to find out which muscle is causing you the most pain. Doesn't work. And you're just causing somebody pain to try and make them feel better, and telling them they're weak at the same time. It's not the case. They have low voltage to a part of the body for some unknown reason. And unless you're in a kinesiology clinic or some form of other muscle tester who is looking for these other reasons, it's pointless. It's just telling you you're weak. It's just telling you you're inflexible. It's pointless, unless you're looking for other stuff that is going to solve it. And exercise doesn't necessarily create increased voltage from here to a problem area. You've got to look for the cause. What's taking that voltage away? Could it be an eye position? Could it be a head position? Could it be my jaw? Could it be what I'm thinking right now? Could it be what I ate last meal? Could it be what I just generally eat overall? Could it be my general demeanor? Am I depressed? Am I anxious? Am I scared? Am I dehydrated? Because that will play a massive part. Have I over-caffeinated? That will play a part. Are my organs functioning correctly? Because we don't know necessarily, unless you're under constant medical scrutiny. And you don't know if your heart's fine unless you're taking your blood pressure kind of regularly. You don't know if your kidneys are fine unless you've had a urine test regularly. Okay, you don't know if you're diabetic unless you've had blood tests recently. You just don't know. And all of these things, your blood sugar levels, your hormone levels, did you get enough sunshine? Have you got enough vitamin D? Have you got enough calcium? Have you got enough vitamin C? Have you got enough vitamin A? Have you got enough zinc, magnesium, etc.? It's all going to play a part in whether your muscle test's strong or weak. And you've got to look for it. Applied kinesiology does. Various other methods will. What I do definitely does. So we've got ring method. Okay, you can self-assess. Okay, use whatever knowledge you've got. You're looking for true or false, so try and phrase what you're asking in a true and false way. Okay, yes or a no. When it comes to self-muscle testing, whatever method you use, you need to find out if your body is working in the way that you would expect it to work in the first place. Otherwise, every test you do will be unpredictable. Okay, you won't know whether you're getting right or wrong or true or false. Okay, so the way to do that is to ask yourself something true and then ask yourself something false. And maybe you want to do 2 or possibly even 3. I wouldn't do any more than that. Okay, so really simple truth is your name. Okay, so my name, so let's use the ring method. Okay, so, or ring and hook method. My name is Peter. True. My name is Susan. False. Okay. My wife's name is Joe. My wife's name is Stephen. Now I know my nervous system is working within the realms of true and false, because sometimes if I'm over caffeinated, too dehydrated, maybe not in the right state of mind, I'm not going to be able to do that. So I just need to make sure that my body is currently understanding true from false. Otherwise, the test becomes unreliable. Okay, the word carries a frequency. A frequency carries a voltage. A voltage affects how my cells work, which will in turn affect muscular strength. Be careful what you think, because it matters to your physical health. And manual muscle testing, depending on who you go and see and what they're looking for, is either essentially pointless, and it's just going to make you hurt, or it's going to be the best diagnostic tool you will ever get, because it looks for truth, and that is all. It only looks for truth, and it considers your whole system rather than just dodgy shoulder. Let's assess some muscle tests at your shoulder. Don't forget, please subscribe on the red tick thing. I don't know, somewhere at the bottom of the screen. I think it's on this side here. Subscribe. More information, more stuff coming over the next weeks, months, years. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you'd like to know more about in terms of health. Don't forget, voltage matters.